Hey everybody. So this week we're going to talk about flams. Okay, flams is the last bit of basic stroke that you will need to be able to play pretty much anything you come across. So if you've mastered everything else in the video series up to now, and now you master flams, you are ready to go. So what is a flam? Flam is basically an ornamentation that is put on a note, any note, to make it, to give it a little bit of a different sound, and sometimes it adds a little bit of difficulty level for the player also to achieve. So basically, you're going to take what we call a grace note and add it right before the primary note that contains the flam. Okay, so what is a grace note? Basically, if you think about it in terms of the basic strokes that we've already talked about, a flam is basically a tap, right? So a stick is in playing position and it drops straight from the wrist position and just drops, boom, straight down to the playing surface. That's going to be a grace note. So you place the grace note just before the primary note. So for example, if you have a right flam, okay, so the right hand is the primary note. The grace note goes just before the right hand. So if the right hand is going to come down here, put the grace note right before it, like that. That is a flam. Okay? And as you can hear, it changes the sound of the note a little bit, right? Instead of a tut, now you're getting a chut, right? So it's a different color. So it adds intrigue. Now, flams can be an accent. If you have an accented note, play a grace with a grace note. You have a flam. It doesn't have to be an accented note. It could be a low note with a flam also. Boom, like that. Okay? Any note, accented, non-accented, could potentially have a flam on it. So if you ever see a note with a flam, which is written as a little grace note thing that's smaller, a smaller note with a flag usually, it's really tiny, just before the main note, that's a flam. So, super easy to play these things, right? As we've said before, all you basically have to do is drop a tap just before the primary note lands. Okay? And it's important to do it before and not after, because I stress that because that's something that's become fairly common when young players learn flams for the first time. It's very easy to actually accidentally put the flam after the note. Do not do that, at least right in the beginning. That is actually an advanced technique that you could come up with much later in your drumming experience, and that's a whole different rhythm or rudiment that you need to worry about right now. You need to master the flam correctly before you can go do the other things. Okay, so a correct flam, grace note happening right before the main note. Boom, 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 boom. Now it's super important that the grace note is a tap. And what I mean by that is that a tap, by definition, does not lift at all. A tap just straight goes down and up. From your playing position in either hand, a tap is going to start here and go there. It does not go up before it comes down, right? And if you've mastered your taps, this will be a very easy concept to grasp. Okay, so a grace note is always going to fall from playing position. Okay, now I'm speaking now in terms of rudimental drumming. Okay, like in a drum line situation. That's when this is going to apply to. The reason I say that is because if you are in a concert situation playing some concert snare drum, and usually you'll be the only one playing the concert snare drum part, those strict definitions won't be as strict. Meaning the grace note might not always just come from playing position down. Because the reason, if you're in a concert situation, The complete sound of the snare voice is going to come from you. Just you, one player, you have to create the whole sound. So if the music calls for fortissimo, flam, and you're one guy on a concert snare drum in the middle of a huge orchestra or symphonic band, you may need to lift that grace note up a little bit to get a good, full sound that the conductor is looking for. Now, again, I'm speaking in terms of concert, a very specific musical situation, right? In a concert situation where you might need to do that. In a marching situation, a rudimental style drumming situation, you would not do that. And the reason being is because not only is the sound super important in a drum line situation, but uniformity of technique is very, very important, which is not something that you need to necessarily think about too much in a concert situation, which is why the techniques differ. Okay? So in a marching situation, you need to keep that grace note down because you need to match all the other players in the line. Okay? And we've talked about that before. And it's very important that we all have the same approach so that it's easy for us to match each other and play clean, which is usually the goal, right? So, flams, right? You can see the grace note is dropping right before the primary note. I'm switching off between right and left hand flams, right? See how that works? Now, when you're first playing flams, it's okay to let the space between the grace note and the primary note be a little big. Okay, that's okay at the beginning, because I usually encourage that because I really want the players, I really want you to feel that there's two different sounds, right? So at the beginning, it's okay sometimes to let it be big. Now this is an exaggeration right here. Okay, but it's okay in the beginning when you're first learning, teaching your hands how to work together to play these flams, because if you speed them up, they'll get tighter anyway. And as you get more comfortable with them, you'll also be able to get them tighter, because an ideal flam isn't going to be like that if you're in a drum line per se. If you're on drum set and you want the flam to be like that, then you make the flam like that, and that's cool, and that's your own business, right? Because it's your music that you're playing. But in a drumline situation, you're not going to want them to be that loud. But at the beginning, when you're practicing, that's okay, because what we're trying to avoid at all costs is the grace note and the primary note coming down at the same time. You don't want that, okay? Where it's like that. See, where it's one sound. Nope, that was bad. Nope. I mean, it was good. I'm trying to do a bad one. Wait. There he goes. There. Sometimes that's called like a flat flam. Basically, there's no difference in sound between this and just this. So there's no reason to do the flam if it's not going to sound different. Plus, you have a very higher chance that you're going to play dirty if the grace note is happening at the same time as the flam, or as the primary note. Plus, you're even closer to moving that grace note on the other side of the flam, which you don't want. Okay, so over here, it's good, nice, no problem. Even closer, that's good, that's a nice, good flam. But then too close is this, that's too close, and then on the other side is that. Bad, okay? Good, bad. Good. Okay for the beginning, right? Flat or wide flams. Boom. Okay? So I'm doing alternating flams. So as you can see, I'm lifting my stick and bringing it down, just like a regular downstroke. It's just, basically it's a combination of two basic strokes that you already know, right? The downstroke and the tap. Boom. Put them together, and you got your flam. Easy, right? Boom, boom. Now, if you're playing alternate, or if you're playing successive flams on the same hand, you know, that's easy. Say you're going to do successive right hand flams, right? As you can see, the right hand is just doing full strokes, right? It's the same motion. So you can really see the motion that's happening. And the left hand, if you're doing all right flams, is only going to play the grace notes. So the left hand is just going to play consecutive taps. So you can see where the grace note is not lifting at all, but the primary note is. Same thing off the left, right? The grace note is not lifting at all. The primary note is doing a regular full stroke. If they're more intermittent, they might be downstrokes. Boom, just like that. Grace note always stays the same, okay? No matter what the volume is, say we're playing piano, no accents. Grace note is still gonna fall from the same place. Forte, grace note still falls from the same place. Mezzo forte, grace note still falls from the same place. See that? So it's very simple and easy to think about. Just be consistent to keep the grace notes as taps. Pure, beautiful taps. Boom, boom, boom. Okay? Now, the only time that's going to change is if you're playing hand-to-hand flams. So right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left flams at any sort of advanced tempos. Like if you're here, you're still going to play the flams the same way. But if you need to go faster than that, there's a certain point where the grace note is going to have to start bouncing in order to play them that fast. You have to have a little bit of a rebound. So if you're playing hand-to-hand flams that are fast, that's the only time where the grace note is going to raise up just a little bit, because you need the stick to bounce more. So just playing it all down here would require tightening up in your hands and your fulcrum and your grip to force the stick down. And that becomes a problem, and it'll enable you, or it won't enable you to be able to play fast. So to play fast, you want the sticks to bounce. So playing hand-to-hand flams, there's a point where the grace note will start to bounce. Now both sticks are bouncing. And then as it slows down, you go back to the tap. Boom. Okay? And those are flams. Now, there's a lot of rudiments that involve flams that once you know how to play a flam and you know how to play it well and correctly, you can just figure out the sticking, and it's easy to figure out these rudiments. Whether they're flam accents, which are groupings of 3, right? Or flam taps, inverted flam taps, Swiss triplets, or slower. You know, any patafluflas. So many rudiments that have flams in them that once you understand what a flam is and how to play it, they're super easy to play. So practice correctly, right? Practice your flams nice and slow, always with a good space, definitive space in between the grace note and your primary note, and always make sure the grace note happens before your primary note. Grace note always comes from a playing position drop into the playing surface. Boom. Do that and you will be golden, and you will be a flam master in no time. Okay? So, hope that all makes sense. Thank you for watching, and then this is the last volume of our Basic Technique Series. So thank you for playing along and for watching, and keep practicing. Have fun. All right, catch you later.